In February, March of '54, I went out to Nam Island, Bikini Atoll, to work with Bob Watts's J16 group. And we were preparing equipment for gamma ray measurements of the Romeo shot of Operation Castle. That bomb detonated on March 27, at a yield of 11 megatons. This was larger than anticipated, due largely to the presence of the N-lithium-7 reaction that Louis and I had measured. This considerably boosted the yield, and in fact it was a very large yield, and that was the one where there was a lot of fallout, and some Japanese fishermen on Lucky Dragon drifted into that fallout and were actually killed. In the meantime, after the shot went off, we had left our gamma ray equipment, gamma ray measuring equipment. The bomb was out on a barge. And then after the bomb was over, some days later, I went in with another guy, all bootied and coveralled up, to recover our equipment in a helicopter. We recovered it quickly. The helicopter picked us up, took us to the deck of an aircraft carrier, where we landed on a rubberized tarp, handed over the equipment for further analysis, and got into new clothes and went back home. And back to Los Alamos. So that was my main nuclear physics experiment in the early days. I got to know John Manley and his wife, Kay Manley, very well. And she really got me into music and singing. She was a good musician. And we had operas, operettas, did most of Gilbert and Sullivan. I remember one in particular was Robin Hood. And one of my colleagues in another P Division group, John Seagrave, was a good singer, and he taught me a lot about singing. And I sing to this day.
Could you talk about like the ethics, how people felt ethically towards working on the bombs? Yeah.
Okay. Well, most people had come there of their own free will because there was good physics, at least in my case, there was good physics to be done. And I had kids, and rather than go through the usual postdoc, assistant professor, etc. academic thing, I really wanted to come to Los Alamos, particularly since there are so many University of Chicago people. So everyone was happy to be there. The atmosphere that I mentioned of Bradbury's lab sort of permeated the whole town. Everybody knew everybody, no matter where they worked, enjoyed each other's company. Now, the whole question of the ethics of bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki was something which had been gone through
1 second.
Oppenheimer.
1 second.
Okay, he's out. Been gone through by Oppenheimer and his colleagues during the war, in particular Robert Wilson, who later started the accelerator in Batavia, Illinois, the first big synchrotron, had insisted on sort of taking a vote. You can read this all in numerous books that have been written. And but Oppenheimer sort of said, no, I'm in charge here. You can vote if you want. And so Oppenheimer, in collaboration with the President of the United States, who by then was Truman, and it was really Truman who approved the dropping of the bomb, but Oppenheimer certainly didn't oppose it. The bomb was called the Gadget in those days. So the two bombs were dropped, and Oppenheimer, although he wrung his hands about it in later years, really never looked back about that. And most of the colleagues his colleagues in the wartime lab felt okay about it. And there have been arguments made, that it ended the war and prevented the invasion of Japan with lots of killing, lots of further killing on both sides. So there we were, and most of us hadn't gone through that, whatever soul searching there was at the time. We came there, and as I say, it was a nice collegial time.
Okay, so let's keep talking about Oppenheimer. I have some questions here. First off, I'm just curious, what particularly drove you to start the petition to fight Oppenheimer's security clearance being revoked?
Okay, yeah, that was a big episode in my personal life, and I might say in the life of the lab. So what happened? In June '54, I learned that a special security board convened by the AEC, the so-called Gray Board, had recommended that Oppenheimer's security clearance be terminated. And the Gray Board consideration boiled down to a controversy over H-bomb development. Oppenheimer was accused by some of having tried to impede the H-bomb, or at least discourage people from working on it. And they also cited possible communist association during his academic years before the war at Caltech and Berkeley. And in fact, some associations Edward Teller, who had worked at Los Alamos during the war, actually gave testimony against Oppenheimer and he, in particular, about his attitude towards the towards H-bomb development. Teller. So I read the Gray Board report in a few days because I really felt shocked by all that was happening to Oppenheimer. It was a document about an inch and a half thick, 900 pages long. But I read it and I drew up a petition because I figured we should try to do something before the AEC itself, under its chairman, Louis Strauss. We were under the AEC in those days, Atomic Energy Commission, before they met to make a final decision. So I got our group secretary and others to circulate the petition and collect all the signatures. And I was very happy and proud that so many of the staff signed, eventually 493 people. And this included the lab's upper echelon. So, petition was sent by me to President Eisenhower and various members of Congress, the local press, the Santa Fe papers, and the Los Alamos Monitor, I think it was the Monitor, covered all this activity. As I said, I got letters back from Eisenhower and various members of Congress, as well as Chairman Strauss. He pronounced his name Strauss rather than Strauss. And Strauss visited the lab in July 1654 and met with some of us. The AEC had its own hearing on July 29, 54, and decided 4-1, including Strauss, not to restore Oppenheimer's clearance. The lone dissenter was Henry Smythe, a professor, I think, from Princeton, and the author of the famous Smythe Report, which outlined the development of the atomic bomb.